Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 6 Part 2 based on novel. So let's start. The surrounding yuan power began to seethe intensely, appearing as if it was rising violently. Waves after waves of frightening yuan power repeatedly surged from Shakuan's palms. The bright golden light was just like a glaring sun, which was rising. Everyone's expressions changed because of this mighty aura. From its momentum, they could tell that this was definitely Shakuan's killing move. Golden Demon Heavenly Strength. Shixian's group also revealed a shock in their eyes when they saw this scene. Immediately, a wild heat rose up in their faces, though others might be unaware. They clearly knew what kind of martial arts Shakuan was currently using. Such a martial arts could be considered top tier even within their Devil Cliff Empire. Its level had also reached a high-level manifestation martial art. It was not weaker than the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger that Lindong had previously used. The strength of such a powerful martial arts being displayed, along with Shakuan 2 Yuan Nirvana stage strength, was something that was understood even without describing. Clearly, Shakuan had planned to use this ultimate skill to end the reputation which Lindong had forged for himself within this ancient battlefield. The bright golden light crazily agglomerated in Shakuan's hand. A bright golden-colored light was vaguely present within that golden light and was partially visible. That light was not very bright. Even Lindong had sensed an extremely dangerous feeling at this moment. Immediately, his eyes gradually became solemn. Lindong had never underestimated Shakuan, who was at 2 Yuan Nirvana stage. Even though his strength had currently soared, he still did not dare to underestimate Shakuan. A lion would have to use all its strength in order to capture a rabbit. Moreover, between Shakuan and him, he did appear to be like the rabbit on the surface. Behind Lindong, Little Flame had similarly sensed the great strength of this attack by Shakuan. His hand slowly held the metal rod tightly and a strange black glow was faintly flickering over his body. Clearly, he was showing signs of preparing to attack. Golden Demon Heavenly Strength. The vast and mighty golden light suddenly reached the limit of its aura. Numerous golden-colored circular light was repeatedly unleashed from Shakuan's body. His gaze was incomparably vicious and cold as he stared at Lindong in front of him. The corner of his mouth was subsequently lifted into a ferocious smile while his cold cry suddenly resounded over the place. Lindong, your good fortune shall end here. Shakuan suddenly took one step forward. Immediately, the enormous golden light in his hand began to shrink in an unusual manner. Within a short period of time, the dense golden glow was scattered. Taking its place was a dark golden-colored light. This light was just like waves of water that repeatedly wiggled. However, the ripple that was emitted from within it was so sharp that it caused even Lindong to be afraid. It was as though this dark golden glow could even tear apart emptiness. Xiao. Shakuan's face was a savage-looking one. Clearly, he did not intend to give Lindong any time as he swung his arm down quickly. Immediately, the surroundings became dim. It seemed like all the light had been absorbed by this dark golden light, before the sky was finally torn apart. Wherever the golden light passed, a golden-colored scar would remain in the emptiness. Bang! An enormous gully was also being ripped in the Pill River below. One could even vaguely see hundreds of Pill Spirit corpses being shattered into dust by the erosion of the sharp wind. While the dark golden light rushed past, countless number of people felt the skin on their heads turning numb. This attack was really quite terrifying. Huff. Lindong looked at the dark golden light that was being magnified in his eyes. The solemnness on his face seemed to have solidified. Immediately, he inhaled a deep breath of air. However, there was a strange expression flickering within his eyes. It was not fear. Instead, it was a fiery heat of anticipation. Both of his hands had also formed many seals during this short while. It was the starting move of the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. Shakuan naturally understood Lindong quite well. Hence, he knew Lindong's intention when he saw his actions. Immediately, he let out a cold smile. He knew that Lindong also possessed a high-grade manifestation martial art. However, the strength between the two of them were two completely different levels. Even if the latter possessed a high-grade manifestation martial art, he would fail to block this fatal attack. "You're courting death." Shixian and the others behind Shikuan also revealed a ridiculing expression when they sensed Lin Dong's intention. However, in their opinion, Lin Dong was just like a grasshopper blocking a car, a completely futile attempt. Shuasha. Lin Dong appeared to have not saw those numerous mocking eyes. The seals were being formed in a lightning-like manner by his hands. A short while later, both of his hands suddenly stilled. 5 light pillars that was agglomerated from all the yuan power within his body had suddenly rushed out from the top of his head. The light pillars charged towards the sky and tore through the clouds. Finally, everyone saw that the empty space where the light pillar was located was actually being torn apart. A vague, seemingly ancient-like aura was emitted from within the emptiness. 5 ancient enormous fingers, that were many times more compact than before, once again broke through the air and were suspended in the sky. Waves after waves of powerful surging ripples were continuously emitted. "I have said that this is useless against me. You are merely struggling before your death." Shikuan proudly looked at the 5 ancient enormous fingers. The ripple above was indeed very strong, but it did not show any traces of exceeding his attack. Lin Dong glanced at Shikuan. The corner of his mouth was lifted into an unusual arc. After which, he placed his hands together. A soft voice was slowly emitted from within his mouth. "Don't tell me that you really think that this martial arts of mine is merely a high-grade manifestation martial art." The Great Desolate Imprisoning Heavenly Finger was the strongest martial arts in the manifestation martial tablet. Though Lin Dong did not know how powerful that ancient sect was back during the days, judging by the strength of that black-eyed old man back then, it was likely not weak. Since this Great Desolate Imprisoning Heavenly Finger is this ancient sect's most valued martial arts, following his deeper understanding of this martial arts, Lin Dong was also gradually able to sense its vastness and great strength. Those moves which he had used in the past was merely the superficial level of this martial arts. Shikuan's eyes shrunk because of Lin Dong's words. However, he immediately laughed out heartily. He thought that Lin Dong was simply pretending to be mysterious. A martial arts that surpassed manifestation martial art could only be obtained from those ancient inheritance. Regardless of how blessed Lin Dong was, it was impossible for him to possess such a martial arts. Although Shikuan held such thoughts in his heart, he still felt somewhat uneasy in his heart for some unknown reason. He hesitated for a moment, after which a killing intent flashed past his eyes. Immediately, the dark golden light speed was increased. Lin Dong could clearly see the changing expressions of Shikuan. The curvature of his lips became even sharper while his hands were suddenly extended out. Great Desolate Imprisoning Heavenly Finger, merge. A low and deep voice was emitted from Lin Dong's throat. After which, countless number of people saw the 5 enormous ancient fingers which were suspended in the sky suddenly merging together. The light wiggled and they actually vaguely formed an incredibly ancient palm. This palm was of an ancient yellow color. Time had left behind some wrinkles and gave it a feeling that it had undergone the many trials in life. It seemed like the hand of a farmer, but it also a rough enormous ancient hand that caused one to feel a frightening aura. It seemed like it was able to shake the world. Bang bang. The instant that this ancient hand was formed, the space where it was located actually began to tremble intensely. After which, countless number of people saw that the emptiness at that spot began to crumble. While it crumbled, a vague figure was standing with his hands behind his back. No one could see the appearance of that figure. However, everyone could sense that the surroundings became silent upon his appearance. Even that pill river which was making a lot of noise earlier had strangely quietened down. That appearance was as though the world had become humbled in front of that figure. This is martial arts' soul? Soul martial arts? The silence of the entire place was suddenly broken by a sharp and shocked voice. The voice's tone seemed to have changed as it resounded over the entire place in an ear-piercing fashion. A martial arts that has a soul is called a soul martial arts. Such a martial arts had a thread of the spirit belonging to its creator. Once it was used, one would be able to summon the spirit that was present in the universe. The power of such a martial arts could truly be described as earth-shaking. Such a martial arts was known as a martial arts that surpassed the nirvana stage, soul martial arts. Those people who were able to create such martial arts were all truly legendary and important figures in this world, and even nature could not destroy them. Therefore, even a little spirituality left behind by such a person was definitely not something that someone like Lin Dong and the others, who were still bitterly climbing within the nirvana stage, could compare with. At this moment, the expressions of Shakuan's group was ghastly white. They were incomparably horrified when they watched the vague figure in the emptiness. Their bodies were trembling and their legs turned jelly, causing them to almost kneel them on the ground. Wang Lai, Chen Ku, and Zheng Heizhu were also watching this scene with shocked expressions. Their faces were ashened. Clearly, they did not think that Lin Dong actually possessed such a terrifying powerful trump card. This person cannot be offended. Chen Ku swallowed a mouthful of saliva and spoke in a hoarse voice. Zheng Heizhu also nodded his head. Immediately, the two of them viciously looked at Wang Lai. If it was not because of this person's words, they would not have planned on doing anything to Lin Dong. Fortunately, they still had the opportunity to leave. Soul martial arts, how is this possible? Besides those around him, Shakuan himself had also become stunned. He looked at the illusionary figure in the emptiness and his eyes shrunk to the size of the tip of a hair. Clearly, the shock within his heart had already reached the limit. Bang! Under the countless number of stunned gazes, the illusory figure within the nothingness that seemed to control the world moved a little. Immediately, everyone saw him slowly extended his blurry hand and gently fanned it downwards. The Yuan power in nature collapsed at this moment. The enormous ancient hand also gently flew out when the illusionary hand was waved. After which, it slammed onto the dark golden light of Shakuan in front of many gazes. Crack! No loud sound appeared when the two collided. Numerous cracked lines immediately formed on that seemingly incomparably sharp dark golden light, the moment the collision occurred. Finally, it completely crumbled in front of Shakuan's miserable eyes. Soul martial arts, a synonym for terrifying. A crisp sound slowly rang out in the air, causing the pupils of countless people to abruptly shrink. This was because they saw that under the ancient hand, cracked lines seemed to have quickly appeared on the dark golden light attack. This attack was formed by Shakuan with all his strength, and it could destroy anyone Yuan Nirvana stage expert. However, the cracked lines spread and the attack exploded into light spots that permeated the sky. This took place in a completely domineering fashion. A soul martial arts was actually this frightening. Grug! Shakuan's expression suddenly turned pale when his attack was destroyed by this brutal force. Immediately, blood churned within his body. Finally, he could no longer resist as he spit out a mouthful of fresh blood and instantly became a lot more lethargic. Clearly, the attack had affected him as well, causing him to be injured. Soul martial arts, Shakuan's was speechless when he saw this scene. He did not even wipe away the trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Was this the legendary soul martial arts that was rumored to exceed the manifestation martial art? It was actually this powerful. How could this brat possess such good luck? How is it possible for him to possess a soul martial arts? Shakuan growled in his heart, unwilling to accept the situation. One must have obtained some inheritance imprint from those ancient sects in order to learn such a martial arts, and it was extremely difficult to obtain one. Even with the strength of their Devil Cliff Empire, they were never in possession of one. However, it had appeared in the hands of Lin Dong, someone from a low-rank empire. How could he calm down when he saw such his martial arts? This brat is unworthy of owning such a martial arts. The dissatisfaction within transformed into jealousy that surged through Shakuan's heart. Both of his eyes were somewhat red, as he stared at Lin Dong. If he could obtain this soul martial arts, he would truly be able to step into the Nirvana ranking and become an outstanding existence in this ancient battlefield. In the future, that martial arts may even aid him to be selected by those super sects. At that time, he would have truly made a name for himself and he would have a limitless future. Humph! While jealousy surged within Shakuan's eyes, Lin Dong, who was watching him from a short distance away, released a cold snort. Immediately, the killing intent within his eyes surged. Following which, the large ancient hand that had shattered the dark golden glow, once again shot out with a whistle and flew towards Shikuan as fast as lightning. Bang bang! The intense pressure and the sound of wind being transmitted caused Shikuan to suddenly wake up. Immediately, his whole body was drenched with cold perspiration as his body quickly withdrew while he hurriedly cried, "Lindong, you did well today. However, the grudge between you and my Devil Cliff Empire will not end at this. There will be no future. Today, you shall die in this Pearl River." Lindong's eyes were icy cold, while his voice was filled with an intense killing intent. He knew that Shikuan was a vicious person and he will definitely take revenge against those whom he had a grudge with. Moreover, the most important thing was that this person was quite powerful. If Lindong let him off easily, he would definitely encounter quite a bit of trouble in the future. Even though Lindong might not be afraid of him, it was still best to completely get rid of any potential problems while he could do so. After Lindong's icy voice sounded out, the large ancient hand appeared to tear through the air. In a blink of an eye, it appeared in the air above Shikuan, who was swiftly withdrawing. After which, it mercilessly slapped downwards. Golden body barrier. The blood within Shikuan's entire body seemed to have solidified that instant that enormous ancient hand slammed down. He could sense an extremely potent feeling of death. Immediately, his eyes scintillated as a screech was emitted from his mouth. A bright golden-colored spherical barrier swiftly spread from within Shikuan's body, appearing just like a tough defense layer that protected his body within. Bang! The large ancient hand did not pause because of the emergence of this glaring golden light barrier, as it continued to fall downwards steadily. The lifelike ancient palm looked like the mountain fishes, giving it an extremely magical appearance. The large ancient hand finally landed on that incomparable tough and solid golden light barrier. Immediately, a bell chime-like sound was emitted from the latter. Soon after, everyone around saw circular golden-colored ripples suddenly spreading on the golden light barrier. The speed at which these waves rippled became increasingly faster. At the end, it had basically permeated the entire light barrier, covering every part of it. Clearly, the defensive strength of this golden light barrier had already been pushed to the extreme, in order to block Lindong's fatal attack. Break! Lindong's eyes were stone cold while his stern cry was just like thunder. The large ancient hand accompanied the sound of Lindong's cry and once again pressed down viciously. Immediately, the golden light barrier that had already reached its limit finally emitted a crushing sound as countless number of cracked lines appeared. In the next instant, the golden-colored light barrier had completely cracked. With the golden light barrier shattered, Shikuan, who had lost his last line of defense, finally revealed a terrified expression on his face. However, he no longer had the opportunity to dodge as the large ancient hand finally smashed down mercilessly and pressed heavily onto his body. Bang! A low and deep sound was emitted from Shikuan's body. After which, his body fell from the sky like a meteorite, before smashing solidly onto the ground, causing the land to tremble before an enormous crater was left on the ground. Shikuan's body was partially visible under the cover of the pile of rock fragments. Meanwhile, his life aura had already reached its breaking point and even the yuan power within his body showed signs of collapsing. The entire place was silent. Some people with better perception could sense the extremely sluggish breath under the crater. Following which, they involuntarily swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Their eyes had an additional fear within it as they turned to look at Lindong again. Beating up a 2 yuan nirvana stage expert until a near-death state with one palm. His abilities and skills definitely had a deterrent effect towards all of them. It was really a little frightening. At this moment, Lindong's reputation within their hearts had caught up with those true overlords within the northwestern region. Lindong's eyes were cold and indifferent as he looked at the crater. He beckoned with his hand and a light flew out from within Shikuan's body before finally landing in his hand. This was an ancient key, the ancient secret key that was used to open the ancient treasure trove. Lindong had always felt that this object held deeper secrets that he was not privy of. Now that he had defeated Shikuan, the ancient secret key in the hands of the Devil Cliff Empire would naturally land in his hand. Big brother. At this moment, Shishien and the others were also extremely frightened. All of them rushed down in an extremely miserable manner. Finally, they landed in that enormous crater and pulled out an unconscious Shikuan, who was covered with blood. Leave now. The limbs of Shixian's group had become icy cold as they looked at the miserable injuries that covered Shikuan's body. Their entire bodies shivered repeatedly. After which, they carried Shikuan up. None of them even dared to look at Lin Dong. The devilish thoughts that originally existed in their hearts was also completely swept away by the fear. After today's exchange, they finally understood that their Devil Cliff Empire no longer had the qualification to fight against Lin Dong. In this cruel ancient battlefield, their Devil Cliff Empire had used its reputation as a stepping stone to allow Lin Dong's name to completely resound across this northwestern region. The fight between them had finally ended with Lin Dong's victory. Being the defeated party, it was extremely difficult for them to make a comeback. Lin Dong looked at the group from the Devil Cliff Empire who were swiftly fleeing like homeless strays, yet he did not attack them. Shikuan was the only one in the Devil Cliff Empire whom he viewed as a threat. Yet, the current Shikuan had already descended into a half-crippled state from his previous palm attack. Even if he could fully recover from his injuries in the future, it would be difficult for him to make any advancement within the next couple of years. Additionally, the reputation of the Devil Cliff Empire within this ancient battlefield would also plummet by a whole level after losing such a critical person. Some of their enemies from the past would likely not give up such a great opportunity. Whether they could survive through these life-threatening dangers was not something that Lin Dong was concerned about. As the men from the Devil Cliff Empire fled, this entire area had also suddenly become relaxed. Numerous gazes were stealthily sweeping over Lin Dong from different angles. However, all of these gazes had expectedly contained a little respect and fear in them. At this moment, no one dared to disrespect Lin Dong simply because he came from a low-rank empire. This was because they understood that the skills which this young man from a low-rank empire possessed was something that even a high-rank empire like the Devil Cliff Empire was unable to withstand. In this ancient battlefield, only genuine strength was the truth that no one could refute. All of you, are you not going to get lost? Lin Dong's eyes slowly shifted downwards from the air. His faint voice was not the least bit courteous when he looked towards Wang Lai and the others. Wang Lai and the other two looked questioningly at each other when they heard Lin Dong's rude words. However, they did not even dare to reply him. All of them decisively turned around and brought their men to quickly flee in a miserable manner. After experiencing that scene earlier, they knew that with Lin Dong's strength, it is a simple feat for him to finish them off. In front of this absolute strength, possessing a stubborn mouth or attempting to act in an imposing manner, would be an extremely foolish decision. Countless number of people watched this scene from the surroundings of the Pill River, before they involuntarily clicked their tongues quietly. With mere emotionless words, Lin Dong had frightened 3 high-rank empires so much that they fled in panic. It seems like another person is going to be added to the extremely short list of people who possessed such boldness and deterrence in this northwestern region. Lin Dong looked at Wang Lai's group, who were swiftly fleeing like homeless stray. However, there were no ripples in his eyes. After which, his body slowly descended from the mid-air. At this moment, the area around the Pill River was still completely silent. Those gazes, which were directed towards Lin Dong, were filled with a respectful expression. It was as though no one dared to break the silence until he spoke. However, Lin Dong did not intend to bother with those surrounding observers. His eyes glanced at the ancient training platform behind him. He knew that a large part of the reason why those people stayed behind was because of this training platform. Let's go. During the 2 days that I have spent practicing in this place, it was likely that the others would gradually have headed deep into the ancient treasure trove. We need to hurry up. Lin Dong smiled, turned his head and spoke towards Little Flame by his side. Currently, Lin Dong's strength had soared greatly and he already possessed the qualification to fight with those genuine experts. The subsequent journey in the ancient treasure trove was likely going to be unusually intense. Although the Pill River contained countless amount of Nirvana Chi and it was not a bad decision to remain in this place, Lin Dong knew that the real treasures within this ancient secret trove was not this Pill River. There were even more secrets and treasures in the deeper regions. Hence, Lin Dong decisively abandoned this good training environment in the face of those 2 choices. After all, he still had to help little Martin find that so-called samsara pill. Yes. Little Flame typically did not oppose Lin Dong's decisions. Hence, all he did was to immediately nod his head. Lin Dong did not remain any longer after seeing this. He transformed into a red glow before he rushed towards a distant place. Little Flame also followed closely behind him. Bang! Lin Dong had just left for a short while when he sensed numerous yuan power fluctuations suddenly erupted from where the Pill River was. He was even able to hear various curses. At that moment, he could not help but smile. Were those fellows finally unable to control themselves and ended up fighting for that training platform? Heh, little fellow, it is unexpected that you have actually mastered the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger till this extent. You really do have some talent. At this moment, little Martin had also appeared. His eyes were somewhat strange as they stared at Lin Dong while he chuckled. The great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger itself is not merely a manifestation martial arts. It is just that I was unable to comprehend it in the past. Now that I have broken through to the Nirvana stage, I am finally able to comprehend that deeper training method. Lin Dong laughed. He had finally realized that the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger actually possessed a deep training method the moment he broke through to the Nirvana stage. The person who created this martial arts is likely not some nobody back then. That kind of aura is even stronger than me when I was at my peak. Little Martin's eyes was a little solemn as it said, Great Desolate Emperor. That is the name of the one who created this martial arts. Lin Dong nodded slightly. This was a little information which he had obtained from the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. However, he did not know if this great desolate emperor was merely a form of address or his actual name. However, just by looking at those words, it was likely that this person was an important and great person in the ancient times. Great desolate emperor, those who could be called emperor during the ancient times were no simple individuals. Little Martin muttered to himself. Immediately, it laughed and said, looks like your luck is quite good. The reason that why a soul martial arts is powerful is because of the little bit of soul that was left behind by its creator. The great desolate emperor has quite a great background. A little of his soul is sufficient to shake the sky and move the earth. It was likely that this martial arts is no ordinary item even amongst soul martial arts. The soul martial arts are also similarly divided into categories of various strength. It is also separated into low, middle and high rank. The difference was determined by the strength of the soul that was left behind by the creator and his actual strength. Someone like the great desolate emperor, who had created this great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger, likely possessed quite a great strength and status. Where do you intend to go next? Little Martin asked once again. Let's go to the deeper regions. It is likely that the samsara pill and other treasures are located in those places. Lin Dong mused aloud. He knew that those people or factions that possessed the qualification to enter the deep regions of the ancient treasure trove would be no ordinary characters. Even the Devil Cliff Empire would likely be considered ordinary at those places. Hence, it was not an easy matter to obtain a treasure in those places. Little Martin's eyes clearly became fiery hot for a moment when he heard the samsara pill. It immediately smiled and said, this ancient treasure trove should be an alliance of some sects back then. There will definitely some inheritance from the ancient sects in the deeper regions. If you are lucky, you might even find a heavenly soul treasure or even a soul martial arts. The corner of Lin Dong's mouth parted when he heard this. Having witnessed the power of the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger, he naturally coveted after those soul martial arts. It would be quite beneficial if he was able to obtain them. The speed of the group did not reduce while they were conversing. The number of people flying past in the sky became increasingly dense as they gradually become distant from the Pill River and approached the deep region of this ancient secret trove. There was an excited expression on the faces of quite a number of people. News about the location where traces of the sect were left behind were vaguely and repeatedly spread. The people here were all clearly aware of just what the ancient relics represents. No one knew just where the inheritance from these ancient sects were located. Therefore, regardless of whether the news were real, most people would still anxiously charge over and take a look. While Lin Dong was traveling, he had also personally saw some of those ancient sect relics. That was a somewhat larger floating island. The remains on the island could be considered to be quite complete. He was even vaguely able to see some ancient characters on a mountain peak on the island. It seemed to be an ancient sect called the Darkbone sect. At this moment, quite a number of people had rushed over to the air above this island after hearing about it. After which, they rushed crazily towards the interior. Occasionally, one was even able to sense some yuan power fluctuations erupting from within it. Clearly, a fight had broken out in order to compete for something. Lin Dong glanced at that place before shaking his head disappointingly. This so-called Darkbone sect was clearly not considered as an important existence in this alliance. Hence, it was likely that there would not be any great things. It was just as Lin Dong had expected. After those people had searched countless number of times around that ancient sect relic and failed to gain any satisfactory rewards, abuses began to be hurled all over the place. The entire area had a comical feel to it. Lin Dong grinned as he watched this scene. Shaking his head, just as he was about to turn away, he saw several figures rushing over at this moment. Finally, they wildly cried out towards this place. Lin Dong's eyes were directed towards a spot a short distance away. There was a group of people, who were interacting in an agitated manner. Although their voices was extremely soft, it was still completely absorbed into Lin Dong's ears. Another complete relic of an ancient sect has appeared in the southwestern area. There is even an energy barrier protecting it. There is definitely something good there. Kai, we have also found a couple of ancient sect relics during our journey over, but we gained nothing from them. This time around, it's the real deal. Quite a number of empires have also hurried over. Here, I heard that there are already 3 fellows who was fortunate enough to obtain that ancient sect seal at that place. Therefore, they can choose to enter any time to obtain an ancient inheritance. Oh? Ancient sect seal? Has it been obtained by someone? Who are those lucky fellows? It is really comical to talk about this. Those 3 people who had obtained the sect seal are not from some high-rank empire. Instead, they are from a low-rank empire. Currently, these 3 unlucky fellows have already been trapped. As long as one forced them to hand over their sect seal, one would be able to enter and obtain the inheritance. A low-rank empire? Heck, these 3 fellows truly don't know their limits. Although they are lucky, they do not possess the blessing to enjoy it. Which empire do they come from? A tall skinny man laughed. From the yuan power fluctuation being emitted from his body, it was clear that he had already stepped into the nirvana stage. It seems to be called the Great Yang Empire. Who would care about this low-rank empire? Currently, it is likely that those 3 fellows have cried until their tears dried up. That person who had came to report the information spoke uncertainly. Lin Dong, who had been eavesdropping on this conversation, was suddenly stunned. His eyes immediately narrowed. The Great Yang Empire, 3 people, the answer to that seemed to be one that need not even be mentioned. Those 3 people should be Mo Ling and the rest who had separated with Lin Dong at the Thunder Granite Valley. From the looks of it, it seemed like they had a lucky encounter. Huff. Lin Dong gently exhaled. His body moved and he directly appeared in front of that group. Without saying anything unnecessary, Lin Dong gripped his large hand, before a majestic whistling yuan power was emitted, forming a pressure that directly pressed down firmly on that group of people. It's a nirvana stage expert. Those few people immediately inhaled a breath of cold air when they sensed the wild fluctuation emitted from Lin Dong's body. They exchanged looks with one another. All of them hurriedly pointed towards a certain direction without daring to slight Lin Dong. Lin Dong randomly scattered the pressure when he saw this. Finally, he turned around and left. Friend, may I know which high-rank empire do you come from? The few people hurriedly asked when they saw Lin Dong leave in such a straightforward manner. They knew that if they could rope in Lin Dong, their chance of obtaining something in the ancient sect relic would likely surge. Oh. The place which I come from is the low-rank empire which you had mentioned earlier, the Great Yang Empire. Lin Dong's feet shook. Immediately, he laughed. His body moved without pausing and traveled far away, leaving behind those stunned individuals. This person actually comes from the Great Yang Empire? Since when did a low-rank empire possess such a person? The few people involuntarily muttered when they saw Lin Dong disappear into the horizon. The tall skinny man knitted his brows slightly. He appeared to recall something while his eyes suddenly shrunk and his voice contained a shock within it. He is Lin Dong. That Lin Dong who is rumored to have defeated Shakuan from the Devil Cliff Empire at the Pearl River despite the latter having already reached 2 Yuan Nirvana stage. The expressions of the few people at the side immediately changed. Their eyes contained a complicated look. It is unexpected that those 3 unlucky fellows actually possessed such a strong backer. However, it is no easy matter to keep the ancient sect seal in front of the malicious intent of so many empires. 2 figures zipped past as quick as lightning, in the dark greyish space that was filled with spatial cracks. In a blink of an eye, they had already appeared at the end of one sight. These 2 figures were naturally Lin Dong and Little Flame. Originally, the former had planned on hurrying to the deepest parts of the ancient secret trove. However, an unexpected development popped up along the way. The Mo Ling trio had followed him for quite some time and Lin Dong saw them as his friends. Hence, when he heard that they had ran into some trouble, given his character, he would naturally not simply stand by idly. Rumors of the sect remnants had clearly spread across the area at an alarming speed. Hence, the Lin Dong duo saw quite a number of people endlessly steaming over from every direction, as they rushed towards the ancient remnants. Obviously, all of them had the same objective. Looks like rumors about the ancient sect remnants are indeed true. Lin Dong's eyes revealed an expression of deep thought when he saw this scene. Currently, most of the empires within this realm were in a state where they would respond immediately to anything. However, they did not blindly follow others. From the looks of it, it was likely that the remnants of this ancient sect was going to be a little different from the rest. Else, it would not attract so many experts. This is a little troublesome, Lin Dong muttered to himself. There were so many experts and empires eyeing this ancient sect remnants. However, the completely preserved ancient sect remnants has extremely powerful protective barriers. Only by obtaining the sect seal would one be able to enter it and obtain the inheritance. As a result, the sect seal had naturally become a hot potato and countless number of people were eyeing it. It might still be alright if the person who obtained the seal was some powerful expert with a renowned reputation. Although the others would be upset, they would not dare to do anything. Unfortunately, Mo Ling and the other 2 had clearly yet to reach such a level. The matter of them having originated from Great Yang Empire, a low-rank empire, had already attracted much disdain. As such, having the sect seal in their hands would not only fail to bring them any inheritance, but would end up bringing disaster to them. One might not have committed any offense, but one will end up suffering because of the possession of a treasure. This was because in the eyes of many empires and experts, Mo Ling and the other 2 did not possess the qualifications to own the sect seal. Hence, Mo Ling's group only had 2 choices. Surrender the sect seal or surrender their little lives. Without sufficient strength, even good luck that descended from the heavens could end up instantly transforming into a disaster. Lin Dong curled his lips slightly. He immediately raised his head before his eyes looked into the distance. All he could see was that an extremely large floating island had suddenly appeared at the horizon of his sight. This island was the largest one that Lin Dong had seen throughout his journey over to this place. Moreover, there was a vague energy ripple spreading from that island. Have I arrived? Lin Dong's eyes gradually narrowed as he looked at this enormous island. The enormous island was currently crowded and chaotic. Numerous figures were suspended in the air above the island like locusts. Meanwhile, the noise gathered together before spreading into the distance. At this moment, all the gazes on the island were basically gathered towards a certain direction. It was the middle of the island. There was a large ancient hall at the middle. The hall might appear to be damaged, but it was clearly considered complete when compared to the other ruins. Additionally, there was a faint circular red glow being emitted within the large hall, covering it in its entity. This was likely the main reason that the hall could be preserved so well over the years. There was a tall stone monument that was within the circular light barrier. On it were some obscure ancient words that were vaguely visible. Dry Cloud Sect, one of the Alliance protectors. It was likely that those people present did not know much about the history of this ancient secret trove. However, just by looking at the meaning of those words, they were vaguely able to sense that this sect was extraordinary. It was likely that there was going to be some genuine sect inheritance within it. Therefore, if they were able to obtain it, they would definitely be able to stand out in this ancient battlefield. In fact, they might even be able to obtain the soul martial arts that everyone coveted after. A boiling heat suddenly surged into the eyes of quite a number of people when they thought of this. After which, they shifted their attention and gathered it at a spot outside of the light barrier. There were 3 figures at that spot. Each of their hands were holding a special seal, which was emitting a faint glow. Many pairs of eyes were staring greedily at the seal in their hands. When they glanced past the 3 individuals, however, their eyes would possess an additional ridicule and gloating expression. In front of the malice intent of this group of lions and tigers, these 3 figures appeared just like a bunch of defenseless sheep. All that they could do was wait to be slaughtered as the others desired. These 3 figures were naturally Ling Mo and the 2 others who had obtained the sect seal. At this moment, their expressions were extremely ugly as they looked at the sky, where those empires and experts from different places were staring at them with ill intent. The original excitement of obtaining the seal had already completely vanished in this situation. They clearly understood once they dared to make even the slightest unusual movement now, it was likely that countless number of fatal attacks would strike them immediately until even their ashes would not remain. The development of this situation had also exceeded their expectations. Originally, the Mo Ling trio wanted to come here and try their luck. However, none of them expected that they would accidentally obtain the sect seal. Moreover, the seals had caused the sect remains in this location to appear, which inadvertently attracted those other empires and powerful individuals. Their original wild joy appeared to have been drenched by a basin of icy cold water which flowed down from their forehead, after the appearance of these powerful empires. The ridicule in the eyes of these powerful individuals were just like needles that pierced through the bodies. If it was not because of the increasing number of empires hurrying over from behind, it was likely that someone would have already attacked them and not dragged things out until now. What should we do? While they were being stared by countless people just like monkeys in a zoo, one of them, Duyun, involuntarily chuckled bitterly. Following which, he turned towards Mo Ling, before he asked. Currently, the 3 of them had already reached half-step to Nirvana level and they were only 1 step short of reaching the Nirvana stage. However, all of them understood that their current strength would not provide them with even an ounce of protection in their current situation. Mo Ling's expression was currently solemn. He clenched his fist before he relaxed it again, while a slumped expression flowed in his eyes. It seems like they did not even have the slightest opportunity to retaliate in this situation. The news should have spread now since we have delayed them for so long. Brother Lin Dong will definitely come if he hears about it. The large-sized man Shan scratched his head and said. The situation is not good. If Lin Dong comes, we might end up implicating him. He has already provided us with enough help, Mo Ling smiled bitterly and said. If it is really impossible, let's just surrender our seals. Ultimately, our lives are more important than these things. It can only be said that we do not possess the fortune to enjoy it. Duyun sighed as he said. Even if we hand them over, we cannot let these fellows off easily. A sinister expression surged through Mo Ling's eyes. After which, he suddenly raised his head. His eyes looked at the 4 groups of men who were closest to them. They were 4 high-rank empires whose strength did not lose out to the Devil Cliff Empire. Moreover, the leaders of these 4 empires were all genuine 1 Yuan Nirvana stage experts. Additionally, it was rumored that those 4 individuals also possessed the qualification to attack the 2 Yuan Nirvana stage. Therefore, strictly speaking, these 4 groups were the strongest existence currently. Why? Have you finally thought it through? A green-clothed man from one of the 4 high-rank empires smiled slightly and mockingly asked when Mo Ling raised his head. I know that the 3 of us do not possess the ability to keep this sect seal. Since you want it, we will give you. Mo Ling was expressionless. His voice paused for a moment before asking, however, there are only 3 sect seals. How do you wish to distribute them? The atmosphere of the four high-rank empires stiffened without anyone realizing it when Mo Ling's word sounded. The 4-1 Yuan Nirvana stage experts shrunk their eyes. The strange atmosphere had stiffened for a moment before the green-clothed man coldly laughed towards Mo Ling. Are you trying to play us against each other? It is not a bad strategy. It is not up to you to decide how we will distribute them. Hand over the sect seals obediently. Don't waste what little patience we have. A dark-faced man extended his hand and cried out. Mo Ling's eyes turned slightly cold when he saw that the other party seemed to have sensed something. However, he did not have any other alternative. All he could do was to exchange glances with the other two, before he tossed his arm in an extremely unwilling manner. Immediately, the sect seals in his hand flew out. A wild heated expression surged in the eyes of the four high-rank empires as they looked at the three sect seals that flew over. However, everyone logically chose not to act. This was because they understood that if they displayed any unusual thought at this moment, it was likely that the other three would attack them in unison. The four sects were evenly matched and taking on the other three alone was a suicidal decision. Therefore, under the watch of numerous eyes, the three sect seals gradually appeared in front of the four high-rank empires. However, just when their eyes crossed each other and they were about to reach some agreement on who should have the sect seal, a wind suddenly blew past the sky and accurately struck onto the three sect seals. Boom! A slight muffled sound appeared and the three sect seals flew backwards. Finally, they were once again suspended in front of Mo Ling's group stunned eyes. Who is this cowardly person? Come out! The expressions of the leaders of the four high-rank empires immediately turned grim, when they saw that the seal in their hands had once again flown away. A furious cry that contained a killing intent resounded over this island. Although my great Yang Empire is merely a low-rank empire, are you thinking too highly of yourselves if you think that you can rob us as you please? A faint voice suddenly sounded in the mid-air. After which, countless number of eyes were shifted. They eventually paused in the mid-air where two figures had unknowingly appeared. Lin Dong? Mo Ling's group immediately exclaimed as they looked at the person at the front. An elation and excitement surged onto their faces. This video will end here.